Maybe you clicked here out of curiosity, or maybe, without even realizing, you were looking for a quiet place where words arrive slowly and the silence is part of the conversation. I wrote this story with care, stitching together memories, hurts, and small discoveries, hoping that somewhere in it, you might see a piece of yourself. If that happens, even for just a moment, stay, listen as far as you can, and if you feel like it, leave a small sign, a simple "I'm here" in the comments, a quiet share with someone who needs it, or a gentle tap on the like or subscribe button. It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes the smallest gestures are the ones that last. Didn't know how much light cost until it went missing. The eye doctor's office smelled like hand soap and paper. There were posters of eyeballs on the wall, all the parts labeled with tiny arrows: cornea, lens, retina, like a treasure map that didn't lead anywhere fun. The doctor used a voice people use with kids who might cry. He pointed at a number on the computer and said words I didn't really know. Out of network, deductible, copay, estimate. Then he said the number out loud. It sounded bigger than my whole first grade class. Mom sat down like her legs forgot what to do. She squeezed my hand, just once, and said, "We'll figure it out." She always said that when things were not figured out. I could see the doctor's mouth move, but one eye makes everything feel like someone turned the world sideways. The bright light made little fireworks in the corner of my good eye. He showed us a picture of a round gray cloud inside my bad one. He said a surgery could help me see better, maybe even read signs across the street without guessing. I thought about the red stop sign at the end of our block and how it always looked like a tomato. On the ride home, Mom didn't turn on the radio. She drove with both hands on the wheel, 10 and 2, like my teacher said was safest. At a red light, she tilted the mirror down and looked at me. She smiled, the soft kind she uses when I'm sick. "We'll figure it out," she said again. "Promise." After the doctor, money became a weather report in our house. I could feel it in the air even if I didn't understand the forecast. Dinners changed first. We used to have spaghetti with meatballs on Fridays, and I got to help roll the meat into little planets. The meatballs stopped happening. Fridays turned into noodles with butter and the green shaker cheese that makes a tiny dust cloud. Mom started telling me she'd already eaten at work, but sometimes I saw her cut her piece of toast in half and slide the bigger half onto my plate when she thought I wasn't looking. Bedtime changed too. Mom used to sit with me and read Dog Man until my eyes got heavy. Now she'd kiss my forehead and say she had a few emails, then wash the kitchen floor, then fold laundry, then just check something on her phone. I could hear the washing machine hum through the wall long after the neighborhood got quiet. When I woke up for water, the living room light would still be on. Mom staring at her budget notebook like it was a puzzle with missing pieces. There were new words in the house, the grown-up kind. Payment plan, consult, waitlist, second opinion. Mom said them softly into her phone like she didn't want the walls to hear. She kept the volume low when she was on hold, but I could still hear the music that sounds like the inside of an elevator. Sometimes she'd stare at the calendar and whisper dates to herself, as if the boxes could move around if she asked nicely. One afternoon, Mom opened her jewelry box. It was white with a little ballerina that didn't spin anymore. She took out her wedding ring. I knew that ring. It made a circle of light on the wall when the sun hit it just right. She turned it around on her finger without putting it back on. For a minute, she looked like she was listening to something only she could hear. "Hey, buddy," she said. "Yeah?" "You know how we say we keep only what we need?" I nodded, even though I didn't remember saying that out loud before. "This," she held up the ring, "we don't need." "Okay," I said, because I'm 6, and when you're 6, you don't really own anything except your backpack and your dinosaur socks. We drove to a store that had a bell on the door and glass cases with lights. The man behind the counter wore a vest and tiny glasses that made his eyes look like a goldfish. Mom placed the ring on a little black pillow. The man lifted it with 2 fingers, like it might run away. He peered through a round glass and said numbers and letters like a secret code. When we got back in the car, Mom's hand looked different on the steering wheel, like the sunbeam had been erased. She blew out a breath and smiled at me, but it was the kind of smile that doesn't go all the way to your eyes. Mike was mid-story, holding court with a beer in one hand, telling a group of 3 guests about how running a tight ship at home made everything else run smoother. Linda hovered nearby, topping off wine glasses, nodding at all the right beats. Emily sat on the couch, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone like she wasn't listening. But I knew she always was. Dan didn't waste time. He stepped right into the middle of the living room, pulled out his phone, and tapped the screen. Mike's own voice filled the space. "Lucky I didn't break her whole damn face." Then Linda's laugh followed, clear and sharp. "A little pain teaches the weak where they belong." The room went dead quiet. Before anyone could recover, Mrs. Wallace walked over to the TV, plugged in an HDMI cable from her phone, and hit play. The screen lit up with still shots and short clips. Emily filming her sister's injury, smirking into the lens, captioning it with things like, "Drama queen can't handle a little joke." One of the guests, a woman in a red blazer, turned to Emily. "Oh my God, is this real?" Emily's face drained. She lunged for the remote, but Dan stepped in, blocking her. Linda tried to laugh it off, something about kids being kids and inside jokes. But her voice wobbled. Mike didn't say a word, just clenched his jaw and stared at the floor like he could make the moment vanish if he didn't move. You could feel the shift in the room. They weren't the hosts anymore. They were defendants, and everyone else had just turned jury. The silence didn't last long. A man in a pressed button-down, someone Mike had clearly been trying to impress, set his drink down hard enough to make the ice jump. "So this is how you run a tight ship, Mike? By smashing glass into your kid's face?" Mike opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Across the room, a guest in a navy suit shook his head slowly. "We've been sitting here thinking you were this model family. We've been lied to." He stood, grabbed his half-empty glass, and tossed the contents onto the coffee table. The liquid splashed across Linda's neat stack of magazines. Emily's phone buzzed non-stop in her lap. Every time she looked at the screen, her face paled a little more. Her friends were seeing the videos in real time. And then it started. The first calls. Mike's phone lit up. Work. He silenced it. Then Linda's phone rang. Church committee. She turned her back to the room, voice low, but the tension in her shoulders gave her away. Mrs. Wallace caught my eye from across the room and gave a barely there nod. We didn't need to say it. This was moving beyond the walls of number 14 faster than they could stop it. Mike sat down heavily in his recliner, elbows on his knees, palms pressed to his forehead. Linda disappeared into the kitchen, the clatter of cabinets covering whatever she muttered under her breath. Emily curled into the corner of the couch, phone pressed to her ear, whispering to someone who clearly wasn't giving her the comfort she wanted. The perfect family veneer had cracked in front of their most valuable allies, and there was no putting it back together. The storm I'd felt brewing for weeks had finally broken, right here in their spotless living room. A few weeks later, a bright red "For Sale, Price to Move" sign showed up in the Harper's front yard. The grass had gone a little too long, and the flowers Linda used to fuss over were browning at the edges. Word around town traveled faster than any realtor's pitch. Mike had been let go from his contracting job. Officially, it was budget cuts. Unofficially, People said the videos had made the rounds at the office. Linda stopped showing up at church. The women on the hospitality committee had seen enough, and heard enough, to make it clear she wasn't welcome in their circle anymore. Emily? She'd gone quiet on social media, but not before half her so-called friends shared those same videos with captions that weren't so different from the ones she'd once written about her sister. The difference was, now the joke was on her. And then there was her, the girl at the center of it all. I saw her on a mild Tuesday morning, stepping out of the house with a single rolling suitcase. Her hair was pulled back, the scar still faintly visible on her cheek. But her posture was different, shoulders squared, chin level. She paused at the curb, looking back at the house. Not at me, not at the neighborhood, just at that 2-story monument to everything she'd survived. Then she smiled, small, private, the kind of smile you give yourself when you've made it out. I didn't wave. I didn't need to. Some endings don't come with applause or clean resolutions. Sometimes, the most satisfying ending is watching the curtain fall and knowing the people who once thrived on cruelty are now left alone in the empty theater they built for themselves. That night, something new appeared in my closet. Mom waited until I brushed my teeth, then asked if I wanted to help her with a special safe place. She moved a stack of shoeboxes and slid her fingers along the back panel until a corner popped out. Behind it was a skinny space as tall as a cereal box. She put a big envelope in there, the kind the school sends home when there's a field trip. It made a soft shh sound when it slid down. "This is our treasure," she said. "For pirates?" I asked. "For sight," she said. "We'll feed it until it's big enough." I nodded like I understood. She let me push the panel back in. It clicked. Mom pressed her palm against it like sealing a letter. After that, the envelope grew by inches you couldn't see. Sometimes it was a folded 20. Sometimes it was coins that clinked like tiny bells. Once, it was a crumpled receipt with a yellow sticky note that said, credit and a number. I learned the map of the closet by heart. I could find the panel in the dark. I started saving, too. I put my allowance, $2 for bringing in the trash cans and not leaving my shoes in the hallway, in a sandwich bag and tucked it behind the stuffed bear with one ear. When Mom wasn't looking, I'd add my bag to the envelope space. She pretended to be surprised when she found it. "Who is this mysterious donor?" she'd say, and then tickle me until I squealed. The world kept leaning to the left when I ran at recess. I missed the ball in kickball because it arrived from a place I couldn't see. But I got better at turning my head just so. I learned to sit in the front row because the words on the whiteboard were easier there. I drew with bold markers instead of pencils. I colored the sky extra bright so it could not hide from me. Every night, before bed, I'd open the closet and press my ear to the wood, like I could hear the envelope breathing. Mom would kiss the top of my head and say, "We'll get there." It felt like waiting for snow on a day the weather can't make up its mind. I still didn't know how much light cost. I only knew my mom was paying for it in little pieces, toast halves, late nights, a ring-shaped shadow on her hand, and that somewhere behind the closet wall, our treasure was growing, one quiet shh at a time. When I got off the school bus that afternoon, the air stung my face. It was one of those Midwest winter days where the cold feels like it's getting into your bones. I kicked the snow off my shoes before stepping inside, expecting to smell Mom's chili on the stove or hear her moving around in the kitchen. Instead, I froze at the doorway. My grandparents were in our living room, coats draped over the couch like they'd been there a while. My Aunt Amanda was lounging in Mom's armchair, her boots up on the coffee table, scrolling on her phone like she owned the place. Grandma's voice carried that tone she used when she was talking about people like they weren't in the room. "And Dubai is just perfect this time of year," she was saying to Grandpa, her hands moving like she was already there in her head. I didn't know what Dubai was, but the way she said it made it sound like some kind of magic word. I looked at Mom, expecting her to smile or join in. She didn't. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, gripping the dish towel so tight it twisted like a rope. Her shoulders were stiff, her jaw tight, like she'd been holding her breath for too long. Amanda glanced up from her phone and smirked. "Told you, Mom. I got it covered. She won't even miss it." That's when she said it, the treasure word. She didn't say it like a pirate. She said it like someone bragging about winning a prize. I didn't understand what she meant, but I saw Mom's face change. It was the kind of look you get when you realize something important is gone. No one yelled. No one even moved for a moment. The only sound was the hum of the heater and the faint buzz from Amanda's phone. And in my head, it felt like all that silence was pressing against my ears, like when you stick your head under water and can't hear anything but yourself breathing. I didn't know it then, but that was the exact moment something between my mom and the rest of them broke, and it wasn't going to get fixed. That night, the house felt different. Quieter, but not in a good way. Like the quiet you get after you've heard something you weren't supposed to, and now you're just waiting for the next sound. I woke up to the sound of sheets shifting. The thin wall between my room and Mom's let through every little movement. I could tell she wasn't sleeping. Her breathing was slow, deliberate, like she was trying to keep it even. She didn't cry. My mom almost never cried, not where I could see. But I could picture her lying there, staring at the ceiling, hands clenched around the blanket like it might stop something from slipping away. After a while, the floor creaked, and I shut my eyes quick. My door opened just enough to let in the hallway light. She came in, smelling faintly of cold air and laundry detergent. She leaned down, brushed my hair back, and kissed my forehead. Her lips were warm, but her voice stayed locked inside her. I kept my eyes closed until she left. I don't know why, but a thought popped into my head. One I didn't say out loud. If I'm really good, maybe she'll be happy again. I didn't know it then, but while I was lying there, making promises to myself, she was already making a different kind of promise. One that had nothing to do with me behaving, and everything to do with making sure nobody could take from us again. Aunt Amanda always looked like she'd stepped straight out of one of those glossy magazines at the grocery store checkout. Perfect hair, heavy perfume that hit you before she even said hello, and clothes that screamed expensive. But her eyes, they were different. Cold, like she was always measuring what she could get out of a person. I don't think I noticed it before that week, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. When she came over in the days after the Dubai conversation, Mom didn't treat her any differently, not that I could tell. She still asked questions about Amanda's trip, about the hotel, the weather, all of it. If you didn't know better, you'd think they were just two sisters chatting. But I started noticing little things. Like how Mom always ended up sitting close to Amanda whenever she pulled out her phone to scroll Instagram. Sometimes she'd lean over to see the pictures better, or hand Amanda a drink so Amanda would have to set the phone down. One afternoon, Amanda brought over a pile of clothes, bright dresses, sequined tops, for vacation try-ons. I sat on the couch pretending to watch cartoons while Mom stood behind her, zipping a dress up the back. When Amanda reached for another outfit, she left her phone on the arm of the chair. Mom's hand brushed against it for just a second, too quick for Amanda to notice, but long enough for me to know she wasn't just fixing the cushion. Back then, I thought it was nothing. Just Mom being polite or curious. Years later, I realized she'd been collecting little pieces of a puzzle only she could see. And every time Amanda smiled for her phone's camera, Mom was already a step closer to turning that smile upside down. When Aunt Amanda finally left for Dubai, I thought maybe that was it, that the weird tension in the house would disappear with her. Mom seemed calmer, at least on the outside, and I tried not to think about the treasure anymore. But a few days later, the whispers started. I came into the kitchen one morning to grab cereal and heard my grandparents talking low in the living room. Grandpa's voice was sharp. "Ryan knows. It's all over." Grandma shushed him, but I caught the word scandal. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but it sounded bad. Grown-up bad, not just late for school bad. Later that afternoon, my friend Mason from across the street was hanging out on the porch with his older sister. She leaned toward him, phone in hand, and said, "Look, Amanda's blowing up online." Mason glanced at me like he wasn't sure I should hear, but I heard anyway. Something about pictures, messages, and Ryan, her boyfriend, making a scene. Over the next day, I pieced together the story like a kid building a Lego set without the instructions. Ryan had been at some fancy event, a company anniversary party, and in front of everyone, he'd read out private messages from Amanda's phone. Not to him, but to someone else. People said he didn't yell. He just read them one by one, then told her she was done. I didn't see it happen. I only saw the fallout. Amanda's tagged photos disappearing from social media, her friends posting vague loyalty matters quotes. It was like watching a storm through the window. You can't feel the rain, but you can see the trees bending. At the time, I didn't understand what Mom had to do with any of it. I just knew that whatever was happening, Amanda's perfect vacation wasn't ending the way she thought it would. After the whole thing with Aunt Amanda started buzzing around town, I noticed Mom's routine changing. She still worked her regular shifts at the diner, but now there were nights when she'd leave after I went to bed. In the mornings, I'd hear the front door click open just before my alarm went off. She'd come into the kitchen, hair pulled back messily, the faint smell of cleaning chemicals clinging to her hands. Sometimes there'd be a folded 20 or a couple of crumpled bills on the counter next to her keys. Other times, I'd spot her slipping small envelopes into the old metal cookie tin we kept above the fridge, the one that used to hold chocolate chip cookies from Grandma at Christmas. I also saw her pulling boxes down from the attic, sorting through things, and taking them out to her car. When I asked, she just said, "Making space." I didn't think much of it then, but it wasn't the kind of smile she used with me. It was tighter, more focused. I caught just a few words. Surgery date, 2 weeks. I didn't fully understand what she was doing. I only knew she was moving fast, like she was chasing something important. And deep down, I had this feeling, like every late night, every missing box, every quiet phone call was a step toward me. At 6 years old, you don't think about plans or strategy. You just know when someone's fighting for you. Mom never did fancy brunches. We were more of a pancakes on a Saturday kind of family. At least, we used to be. But that Sunday morning, the table looked like something out of a magazine. Fresh flowers in a vase, real cloth napkins, even the good plates we only used on holidays. I remember sitting at my spot, swinging my legs under the chair, feeling this weird mix of excitement and nerves. It looked like a celebration, but Mom's face didn't match the decorations. She wasn't smiling. Her eyes were steady, cold in a way I'd never seen before. Grandma and Grandpa came in first, their company voices turned on, making small talk like nothing in the last few weeks had happened. Amanda showed up last, wearing big sunglasses inside like she didn't want anyone to see her. We all sat down. Nobody touched the food at first. Then Mom reached under her chair and slid an envelope across the table, the paper making a faint scratch against the wood. "Go ahead," she said. Grandpa opened it, and I leaned just enough to catch the top of the paper. I saw a date, a hospital logo, and the word surgery. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but I knew it had something to do with me. "That's in 2 weeks," Mom said. "It's already paid for." Grandpa frowned. "Paid for? With what?" Mom didn't blink. "That vintage Chevy you keep in the garage? The one you said you'd pass down to your real kid someday? Turns out it was still in my name, so I sold it." The room went silent. Not the polite kind of silent. The kind where you can almost hear the air getting sucked out, like when you open the freezer and the seal pops. Amanda looked up from behind her sunglasses, but didn't say a word. Grandma's face flushed pink. Grandpa's jaw tightened. And me? I just sat there, not fully understanding the grown-up part of what happened, but feeling the weight of it pressing against my chest. We were still sitting there, the envelope on the table like it was some kind of loaded weapon, when Amanda's phone started buzzing. Once. Twice. Then it didn't stop. The sound filled the room. Vibrations against the wood. Little pings from notifications stacking up faster than she could breathe. She finally picked it up, and I saw her shoulders tense. The screen's glow lit up her face just enough for me to catch her expression change, like all the air had been punched out of her. Ryan's name was right there at the top, but the words weren't private. They were part of a post. A long one. "I want to apologize," it started, "to anyone misled by someone I trusted. Betrayal hurts, but honesty matters more." And right after that, her name. Tagged. Mom didn't move. I don't think she even blinked. Amanda scrolled, her breathing getting sharper. I caught flashes of photos, screenshots of messages, a hotel reservation that wasn't in Dubai. Every single one had her tagged in bright blue letters, and by the look on her face, half the town had already seen them. Then, without a word, she tossed the phone onto the table. It skidded toward the envelope, face down. Her eyes were red around the edges, the kind of red that comes from more than just lack of sleep. Grandma and Grandpa didn't speak, but something in their faces shifted. Not guilt, fear. Like they suddenly realized the thing they'd been protecting wasn't as untouchable as they thought. I'd never seen my family look like that before, and I didn't know it yet. But this wasn't the end of it. It was just the part where they started to understand they weren't in control anymore. Mom didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Get out of my house," she said, her tone almost calm, like it was just another fact. No different than telling someone the sky was blue. For a second, nobody moved. Amanda stared at the table like if she just sat there long enough, the words would disappear. Grandma glanced at Grandpa, but he kept his eyes on Mom. Then, slowly, chairs scraped back. Amanda stood first, shoving her sunglasses on even though we were still indoors. Grandma followed, her purse clutched tight under her arm. Grandpa was last, pausing like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. I stayed in my seat, watching as they shuffled toward the front door. The sound of it opening was sharp in the quiet, then the dull thud of it closing behind them. I went to the window and peeked out. They were walking down the driveway, 3 figures hunched against the late morning sun. From where I stood, the light made them look smaller, almost like shadows that didn't quite belong in the day. That's when it hit me. Not just that Mom had won, but what she'd won. It wasn't about the car, or the surgery money, or even the way Amanda's face had crumpled over that phone. It was the space around us now, the air in our house feeling different. For the first time I could remember, it felt like it was just ours. 2 weeks later, we were sitting in the hospital, the kind of quiet where the only sounds are beeping monitors and shoes squeaking on polished floors. Mom kept one hand on my shoulder the whole time, even when the nurse came to wheel me into the operating room. I wasn't scared, not really. I'd gotten used to living in a world where one side was always blurry, but I could feel how much this mattered to her, and somehow, that made it matter more to me. The surgery didn't take long. At least, it didn't feel like it. The part I remember most is waking up to a gentle voice telling me to hold still while someone carefully peeled the bandages away. Light flooded in, not just light, but detail. I blinked hard, and the first thing that came into focus was Mom's face. I saw her like I'd never seen her before. Every strand of hair pulled loose from her ponytail, the faint lines at the corners of her eyes from nights spent awake, the way her lips pressed together when she was holding back tears. "Mom," I whispered, "is this my light?" She smiled, tired but certain. "No, buddy, it's ours." When the nurse cleared us to leave, she took my hand. We stepped outside, and the sunlight hit me full on. Warm, bright, almost too much. But I didn't look away. We walked toward the parking lot together, and I thought about all the colors I could finally see clearly. For the first time in my life, the world didn't look like one color. It looked like possibility.